Hello, Peaceful Profits Nation. Chanel here with an exciting client spotlight episode for you today. Welcome to the podcast, Mike Fink. We're super glad to have you.
Thank you so much. I'm very happy to be here too.
Yeah, so let me introduce you guys. Mike Fink holds a Master of Science in Psychology from Yale University. He has been directly trained or worked with some of the biggest names and early neurolinguistic programming (NLP) developers. He is a world-renowned coach and personal development expert, having been featured in many prominent French national primetime TV shows. Over more than 2 decades, he's helped more than 110,000 French speaking people from 157 countries dramatically achieve goals they thought were unattainable. After a particularly painful turning point in his life, he created and developed a revolutionary clarity and decision making process to tackle complex and high cost of failure life decisions like divorce. He is now on a new life mission to share it with the world, starting with English speaking women, helping people reach decision harmony and make the right decision every single time, one person at a time. Mike grew up in Europe and lived in 5 different countries, including the US, before moving to Canada, which is now his home. His accent when he speaks English is a mix, but most people hear it as a French accent. Well, I'm excited to hear this accent more and learn more from you today, Mike. So, I wanted to start off as I was doing my research into, what you're all about. I was really impressed that your dream client is so specific, and I want to start there. You help people with a very specific problem. So, what is that?
So, yes, it is very specific. I help women considering divorce go from confusion, anxiety, and fear of regret to getting absolute clarity and certainty so they can make the right decision for themselves and for their kids with complete confidence.
Yeah, okay, I love that. So, what got you into that niche?
So, it actually came from a personal story. Quite often people say that your wounds are your gifts. And the reason I chose this niche is because I myself went through a divorce. Now, in all transparency, it was a business relationship, and I divorced from a business relationship, which was 50-50. But this is nevertheless highly relevant because it was a 10-year long relationship, and the first 5 years were okay, but the last 5 years were hell. And we started growing apart. We had a different vision in terms of where we wanted the business to go, our values, and things started getting more and more difficult. We were arguing all the time. But I wasn't sure, is it me? Is it him? Is it the relationship? Can we fix it? Can we make it work? But it just became increasingly more difficult. And I will say that the thing that struck me is that I'm a smart person. And yet, inside that relationship, I was completely lost. I was confused. I didn't know whether I was right or wrong. And basically, I realized that there was a huge cost of indecision because I knew that if I made the decision to leave the relationship, I had one shot at it. It was irreversible. And I was
Yeah.
so scared that I would regret it that maybe what if I get it wrong? And as a result, the safest path when you are stuck in indecision is the status quo. Now, I'm sharing this story because this is one of the things that actually PPIP taught me when I wrote the book, which is to articulate my origin story. So after 5 years of misery, I had a moment where he wanted to take the business in a very different direction. And it was like one more step. I couldn't sleep at night, but I had just turned 50. And therefore, I decided to do a life review, right? Like many people do. And when I did my life review, I realized that I got most of my life decisions right, except for two decisions. One had to do with the family thing, and the other one had to do with getting together in this 50-50 relationship with this person. And what struck me is that for all the other decisions, I had followed the very step-by-step process that I had developed that always got it right. But for some reason, I didn't do it for that decision. And when I decided to apply my own medicine, I went through those steps. It was just such a relief. All of a sudden, I knew what to do. It was with my head, with my heart, with my guts, and I had this peace of mind. People started noticing right away. I went from being burnout to being this kind of Zen person, and I was able to move forward. I knew that the right thing to do was to end the relationship, but not only that, I just felt it with what I call decision harmony with my head, with my heart, with my guts. So I decided to buy him out. I had to sell a financial asset or an asset to get the finances. So it was not easy from a logistical point of view, but from a psychological, emotional, intuitive point of view, it was easy, and I bought him out. Now, I'm not saying that to judge him because he was a good person, he had been a loyal friend. It's just that we're not a good fit. But until I
Right.
went through that specific process, I couldn't have that clarity. I couldn't have that clarity with my head, with my heart, and with my guts. And there's a turning point that's part of the origin story that is being taught in the PPIP, which is okay, so I had this life experience, then what, right? And at that time, my spouse had a brother who was a medical student. He was finishing his studies, and he had some very important life decisions to make in terms of where to live, where to go, where to study, specialty, no specialty. And he had been agonizing about that decision for 2 long years to the point that he had anxiety attacks. He had nausea when he was thinking about it. I mean, he was a mess. So I said, hey, I have this process. Let me walk him through the process. So I did a session with him, and in 2 hours, Chanel, he went from confusion, anxiety to clarity. And he said, like,
Mm.
wow, I've been like in pitch dark in a room with furniture, and I was bumping myself against the furniture, and you just switch on the light and I can see. And he was able to go from that position of confusion and anxiety to clarity, and he's been doing great ever since. So at that point, that was my big aha moment, the turning point. I said, you know what? I put the finger on something very special here. I shifted my life mission to share this process with the world. And I'm going to say something that is going to make you smile. But at that time, I thought, if Mel Robbins, with her 5 second rule, was able to write a book and to be a successful author and a successful public speaker, I certainly can have success with this process. Little did I know at the time that I will be working with Mike, who actually had helped Mel Robbins, right? So that's kind
Yeah.
of the funny ways the universe works. So I've decided then to help women specifically with the divorce decision because it was so close to what I had gone through. And many people will say, well, but the business is not the same thing. But the real issue is not whether you're unhappy or not with your spouse. The real issue is the issue of indecision, what to do about not being happy. And there's a huge toll and a huge cost associated with it that most people do not realize. And this is what I help solve.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you for sharing that. That's so interesting. And I love the examples that you gave. I also love this piece that you understand the real issue is indecision. And as we heard in your bio, you have the ability to help a lot of people with the decision-making process. We also heard that in your stories where you're talking about a business and then you're talking about your brother-in-law and that's, his life career choices, what he's going to do. Obviously, you could have done a lot of different things with your background. I would love for you to talk to us a little bit about this jump of going from, you know, the decision making process, narrowing it down to divorce, because I think this is something that will really help our listeners. Often we go, okay, and I hear this all the time. People say, well, this can help anyone make a
Mhm.
decision with anything. And so it's very hard to just do one decision like you have. Was that difficult for you to narrow that down?
That's a great question. I will say that this is something that I made a decision about before joining PPIP. Having said that, I will also show how PPIP expanded my thinking. So it's something that I got in terms of, okay, I've been doing online marketing for quite a while. So in terms of understanding the power of talking to one person versus many, it's quite powerful. I mean, let's imagine going to a cocktail party and people ask you what you do, and you say, oh, I help people make important life decisions. Well, important life decision is just so generic, right? They cannot
Yeah.
really relate to that. But if you specifically say, I help women considering divorce go from anxiety to clarity, well, if that person is a woman considering divorce, it will be, hey, that's me. Or if that person knows a person who's considering divorce, they will be able to immediately make that connection between what you offer and who you could help.
Yeah.
So that's a huge step. I know it's a challenge for a lot of people. Thankfully, I had gone through that challenge and I had solved it before joining PPIP. Having said that, one of the things that I got in PAP is that Mike helped me expand and broaden my thinking. And it's going to sound obvious when I'm going to say it. And yet, even though I knew the concept, it wasn't until I heard Mike express it somehow. he has an ability to say things that click to me. I don't know if it's something personal, if it's just that he's just
I
that
feel the
good.
same way. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, I've heard this before, but wow, the way he said it, it's like now I really get it.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I went through PPIP at the very beginning, that's stage one, as you know, is, kind of revisiting my offer to make sure it's a good offer. I had already tested it. I had already had some work client experience and so on. We may talk about that later. But one of the things that Mike has you think about is, okay, what problem do you solve? And what other problems that come after that can you solve as well? And it took maybe, 6 months, but he planted a seed. And then I'm going to say something that sounds obvious, which is I can help women make the divorce decision with absolute confidence, clarity, and peace of mind that I know. But the reality is that then this is just step number one. Once they make the decision, and if the decision is to divorce because they realize they cannot save their marriage, then they will be facing a deluge of other decisions. What about
Right.
what divorce lawyer should I pick? What about custody arrangement? What about relocation? What about my perfect? I mean, this is just the beginning, and it expanded my thinking to show me that wow, I can help this woman not only make this step, but also expand, and then I can help them make this other decision with confidence because I've taken something that was um, quite niche, as you said, as a point of entry. But then once they see that this process is applicable to so many other areas, I can help them further. And also to kind of answer a question, which is why is picking a niche so important? Well, it's not an accident that you chose that question. It struck you that I chose that specific niche, right? It
Yeah.
really sorts people out. It really makes people identify themselves with, okay, this is me. Therefore, I'm willing to listen versus a generic thing. And also, if you think about medicine, who is the doctor who, in a way, offers more value, or even in terms of quote unquote business earns more? It's not the generalist. The generalist refers you to the specialist.
Yeah.
If a person has an issue because they broke their leg doing a skateboarding accident, I think actually this may actually be an example from Mike. Well, who's the doctor that he's going to want to go and see? The general GP or the orthopedic surgeon who not only helps people with broken legs, but also is specialized with athletes in the skateboarding field, right? So
Yeah.
that's the power of having a powerful niche.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. So, for you personally, what has narrowing that down done for your business?
That's a great question. So what it does is, well, you can imagine that even if you have a decision-making process that is applicable to many areas, each specific niche has its own set of nuances of issues, right? I mean, helping women make the divorce decision is different from helping a business owner deciding whether to sell his business or her business, right? Why? Well, because there are many more variables involved when you think about personal relationships. I mean, there's a whole aspect of the relationship most people don't realize, but in an intimate relationship, there are between 20 to 30 things that are important to people. I know it sounds like a lot, but that's the reality in terms of determining whether a person is a good match or not. And most people don't even realize that. So understanding the complexity of that specific niche plus the nuances and specific issues. What about my kids? That's a question that comes up all the time. What about my finances? What about how do I communicate then my decision to my spouse? So it really allows you to become an expert not only at your solution, but at understanding the daily reality of your prospects. Something that my clients tell me all the time is like when I read your email, it's like inside my brain. You know exactly what I'm going through. And that's no accident. It's because they may be going through this decision maybe once or twice in their life, in terms of the should I divorce or not. But
Right.
I've spoken with literally hundreds of women. So I know this issue from so many different angles, from so many different point of views, with so many different, what if this, what if that, that gives you an unparalleled expertise and empathy to understand the people that I'm talking to. Does that make sense?
Definitely. And I think it just really speaks to the power of, this idea of why it's so important to niche down. You cannot have that if your emails were saying, "Oh, struggling with a difficult decision," and you would not be inside their head. But the fact that you're having this conversation about divorce and what's it going to do to the kids and but I like my mother-in-law and I want to keep that relationship or whatever it is, whatever those conversations are, you can only have that conversation because as humans, we're not thinking in generalities. We're not thinking, "Oh, I am struggling with a difficult decision." We're thinking, "Should I, in this case, should I divorce? Is that the right thing and what will the repercussions be and whatever." And so I think that's just so powerful, all those next levels of that. Now, I'm really curious to hear. I know you've been writing a book, Inside Peaceful Profits, which is awesome. I'd love to dive into that a little bit and see how all of what we've been talking about plays into that. So, first, what made you decide to write a book?
Well, first of all, it's written. Yes, I'm so excited about
Yay!
that. And
Congratulations.
it was a labor of love. Now, I'm finishing formatting it. Literally, it's going to be ready
Awesome.
formatted this week. Now, in terms of what decided me to write that book, I mentioned earlier in my origin story that when I realized I had put my finger on this revolutionary process, I actually shifted my life mission. So I mentioned Mel Robbins, and the funny thing is that right from the get-go, I had this idea of writing a book. But I first wanted to get more, let's say, exposure to the niche for the benefits that we just talked about. Because
Yeah.
once you get into the nuances, maybe a woman has an affair, maybe another one loves her husband, but they're just roommates, maybe another one argues all the time. I mean, just having that diversity and richness of experience enable me to then have the material and the background to have the ability to write a book. Now, writing a book is an idea that I had for quite a number of years, but it's not only about, oh, I'm going to write a book, let's go. It takes skill.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is that for a number of years, I was asking, who's the best person to lead me in writing a book? And eventually, the universe has mysterious ways of working. I was led to find Mike's book, and then I saw that he had been helping Mel Robbins write the book. And this is basically how I said, first of all, I want to write my book because I have a legacy. I discovered something unique, revolutionary. There's nothing like it out there. So I wanted to give that to the world. I say that it sounds almost a joke, but it's not. I say to my friends and even to the people in PPIP, I said that to Meredith, this wonderful person who was my editor who coached me through the process. I said, now that I've written the book, even if I die tomorrow, I have peace of mind because I know that I came on this planet and this is part of my mission. And at least the process is out. Obviously, I don't want to
Yeah.
die tomorrow. I want to keep working and expanding the mission and the process and impacting more and more people's lives. But that was reason number one. Reason number two is the serendipity brought me to mind because I was following a previous business model that got me some results in terms of being able to work with people, but not enough results, at least not in terms of, it got me some results in terms of helping a large number of women get clarity, peace of mind, and transform their lives. But from a business point of view, I was actually losing money with the other business model. So I had to find a way to combine my life mission with making it work economically.
Yeah.
I can go more in terms of the book and why I think a book is the best solution that Mike's offered. Do you want me to expand on that? Because I think it's quite important.
Yeah, definitely.
So that I think there's like two ends of a continuum. You can either have whole traffic or you can go social media. And this is a distinction that to me is important because there are both advantages and disadvantages with every solution. So cold traffic is you do Facebook ads or Google ads or whatever. You turn on the faucet, you spend money, hopefully you get a good return on your investment and you get prospects. Now, that part I love, and this is what I have been doing in my previous business for a long time. And the reason I love it is because it's so predictable in a way.
Yeah.
Once you work out the numbers, you turn the faucet on, you turn it off, and you know what to expect. Now, on the other spectrum, but it costs money, you need to have that expertise. Now, on the other spectrum, you have social media. People like Brendan Bouchard, with whom Mike also worked, by the way, but they will just crank out the content and every single day, one video after another with pure value. And the rationale behind that is that if they provide people with value, then when the moment comes for people to want to solve this solution, they will say, oh, I already know this person. I like them. I trust them. I'm going to go with them, right? But what I don't personally like, and this is a personal preference with social media, is that it feels like slavery to me. It's like, I
Yeah.
need to produce content every single day, or even if it's 3 times a week or whatever that is, for me, it's just too much. I just feel constrained. So the genie part of the book, I believe, and the genie part of the funnel that Mike has come up with is that for me, this is a hybrid between the two methods. Because if you think about the purpose of social media is to build knowability, likability, trustability, to establish
Yeah.
yourself as the expert, right? The authority. And the other part is control without having to produce content. So a book, does it take time and effort? Yes, it did. But if you do it right and and with the right people, you'll get to that. But all the time and effort that I put in creating my book provides a huge amount of value that I can provide to my prospect or customer, at least the book customer. And therefore, once they get to read the book, they see that I'm the real deal, that I'm an
Yeah.
expert, that this is unique, that they will not find this anywhere else. They like me, they know me, they trust me by the time they have gone through the book or listened to the audiobook. So in terms of building that component of trust and authority, you have it, I would say, even better than social media because you also have a person who invested, even if it's just $5 or $10 to buy the book, they demonstrated that, you know what, I'm interested in consuming a good content. At the same time, once you have written the book and built the book funnel, then you have the advantage of cold traffic because then you turn on the ads and that's it. It's predictable. So it's a wonderful hybrid of combining the benefits of credibility, trustability, likability, being the trusted expert with being able to run a business that's scalable all in one. So to me, you write the book, it's time and effort, but once it's written, and yes, it's written, it's
Yay.
a long-term asset. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely. I think that's really, informative and just instructive in what that process looks like and how the book can do some of those things that some of us are trying to do on social media, right? And it but without the idea of being a slave to social media and constant posting. Now, you said you were running ads before in your business. So you're not new to running ads. So what was going on in your business before deciding to write a book? What was the structure? How did that look?
So once I shifted my life mission, I decided that I wanted to share the process with the world and going into this direction. I actually got involved with another coach guru, which will remain nameless. And his methodology was to create a webinar, a 40-minute webinar. So you'd run Facebook ads to a landing page, people will sign up for a webinar, and then you would provide some value in the webinar. And at the end of the webinar, you would invite them to book a call. Now, this process got me some results. I cannot deny that. And mostly in terms of being able to find some people that became clients I was able to help. And it was just a tremendous thrill to be able to make, such a difference. The problem with that model, though, was double. The first one, it was extremely time consuming because I would get a lot of calls booked with people who were completely unqualified. The
Yeah.
problem with a webinar versus a book funnel is that you have people who just see an ad, they see a webinar, they sign up for it, maybe they watch it, maybe they don't, but it's the jargon. It's called they're called freebie seekers. I mean, there's nothing wrong with people seeking information for free. It's just that from a perspective of you trying to make the best in terms of how you use your time to make sure that you talk to people who you can truly help, having a lot of people who are not qualified, it's a waste of their time and a waste of your time. So I had a lot of no-shows, a lot of people booking calls, and then just for me to realize that that person was not the right person for me to talk to. And the second factor was that it was costing a lot of money because you pay first in terms of cash for the ads, and then you pray that you will have enough people come back and become customers so you can not only make up the money for your ads, but also make it worth economically, make the numbers work.
Right.
And that model, unfortunately, turned out to be very ineffective. As I said earlier, it was great that I got to help a lot of people, and I did it. But at some point, it was clear to me that economically speaking, I couldn't pay to help. I was losing money. So this is where I kind of shifted my thinking and how one person, and that's actually a benefit that I got is like I got involved with one person in a group, and they're the ones who talked to me about Mike Shreve. I checked him out. Then there was the coincidence about Mel Robbins, and I read the book. And when I read the book, it's like, oh my goodness, this is mind blowing.
Yeah.
That absolutely makes sense. And I just shared the hybrid model, and I basically read the book, watched all the videos, and when I was on the phone to just find out about how to get involved with PIP, it wasn't a sales call for me. I was already set. It's just okay. Give me the logistics. What's the investment? Let's make that happen. And having gone myself through that process, not only did it make sense to me by reading the book that that's actually an incredible way to make it work, but I went through as a user. I really had the experience that a book can build trust, credibility. I mean, to me, after I read the book, even without having spoken with anyone from Peaceful Profits, I was already quote unquote sold. I was
Yeah.
a fan because it made so much sense to me. So that's how yeah, that's where I was before, and that's how I got involved with Peaceful Profits.
I love that. And that's something we see a lot because that's the power of a book right there,
Yes,
right? It
yes.
pre-sells. You're like, yes, I want this. Give me more. And so coming to a call, Mike talks a lot about this idea of sales environment. What a great sales environment if we can do that in our own businesses. Put that book, have these people coming saying, I want this versus, coming skeptical or scared or whatever. And so that's so powerful. Now, congratulations on writing your book. That's awesome. And I know you're still working on your book funnel and getting your book out into the world. So I'm curious, what does having a book change for you both now and then as your business goes on in the future?
So several things. So as I said, I've written the book. I'm extremely happy and proud of it. And at the same time, I still have to make the book funnel work. But to me, in addition to, let's call that the life mission slash legacy part in terms of it's written, it's out there, no matter what, even if something happens to me, people will be able to benefit from it. In terms of the business, so let's talk about more of a pragmatic way. It's a huge asset that we'll be able to use to build a book funnel because the idea, and for those of the listeners who may not be super familiar with the PPAP, but it's a genius idea. It's using a book on so many fronts. It's not only to establish the credibility so that your sales environment becomes completely different because they come to talk to a trusted person and an expert, but also from an economic point of view, you get to offset or maybe even either make a profit or almost offset your cost of advertising because you sell a book. Mike teaches you a very clever and very detailed way to also create some additional offers when people buy the book. When they buy the book, you can also offer them what we call within the PPIP environment order bumps, which is, okay, now that you got the book, hey, what about this? Do you have, for example, the question, is it me or is it him? Is it me or is it my spouse? And you don't know when to trust your guts. Hey, you could have this specialized program that I've created to answer that question. Oh, what about if you have religious beliefs? Or what about if divorce actually conflicts with your religious beliefs or moral values? I also have a specialized program. So people can not only buy the book, but can get those add-ons that make it so that at the end, you are able to offset or even be profitable in terms of your ad spend. So it completely radically changes the economics of the business, right? All of a
Yeah.
sudden, I don't have to have a huge cash outflow to have people to talk to. It can be either no money, breaking even, or making money. And on top of that, I'm having qualified prospect, people who have demonstrated that, they raise their hand, they say, hey, I have the problem, I'm willing to invest some money. And then once I have those people that I can talk to for free, or even having made the numbers work in my favor, economically speaking, then I can find out who the right prospects are for. So for me, it's a business model that has a huge economic upside because, I mean, what is better than having qualified people to talk to that actually made an investment to talk to you, right? Nothing better than
Yeah.
that. And to me, it's also a longevity benefit because having a book funnel is something that will last for lots of years. I've been doing online marketing for quite a while now, and whenever you are trying to get things done with a VSL, it's always the flavor of the day. What's the trend? What's this? What's that? But a book is something different. I mean, think about the crazy thing. You are in the other models, you are quote unquote paying Facebook, so paying money so that people would come and consume your webinar. Here it's flipped on its head. People are investing. There's the one making the
Yeah.
investment so they can consume your content. Obviously, it has to be outstanding, right? But once you have outstanding content, the whole relationship is transformed and the whole dynamic and the whole, you can call that selling environment, but I would say the whole connect relationship is very different because now you have a very different connection with the people who you get to talk to. Does that make sense?
Totally. Well, and as a buyer, it makes sense too, right? The person who's seeing this ad, instead of like, okay, I guess I will give you my time and go to your webinar, instead they're coming in saying, wow, I want this. I'm going to pay for this. Mike has the answer to my problem. Mike Fink in this case, Mike Shreve, both of them have the answers, right? Different problems, but has the answer, and I am willing to pay for that. And what a different scenario when you come in with that. I think that's so powerful. Now, you have shared so many good things with us today. I would love to hear your advice that you would give to others who are looking to grow and scale their own businesses.
I love to do that because I'm so excited about peaceful profits and PPAP. There's one more thing I want to add to the previous question, if that's okay with
Yes.
you, because there was an unexpected benefit that I got from writing the book that actually blew my mind and I think elevates the full benefit even more, which is I knew that I had a good book in me, but writing a book forces you to explain clearly what you have to say, right? Blaise
Yeah.
Pascal, the French philosopher, said, whatever is clearly thought out is also clearly expressed. And in order for me to clearly express what I wanted, it was a huge benefit because I knew that I had discovered this revolutionary process. But when the time came, and this is where the guidance of PPIP is so important, PPIP talks to you about, well, what is the secret key that makes your process so different from others? What
Yeah.
is the core mechanism, right? And when I was faced with those things, I really had to dig deep and dig deep and find out. So I knew, for example, that indecision, it's a huge psychological issue. You're stuck in the status quo. And I could explain that, let's say, in everyday psychological/emotional situations. But then when I wrote the book, I had to dig deep and actually I had to go into neuroscience to understand that the reason we're stuck is that we have not one brain, but three brains. We have the rational brain, the emotional brain, and what's called the old brain, the primal brain, the reptilian brain. And the reptilian brain is in charge of survival. And you may have heard about the fight or flight response. There's also the freeze response. And when I dug into that, I realized that the reason women are stuck in indecision when they think about divorce is that the primal brain say, hey, I'm here to protect you. Survival is the number one priority, right? And you know what? When in doubt, wait it out. Okay, so how do we convince the primal brain? And then you have to realize that the primal brain was 500 million years old, whereas the rational brain, which is also in charge of language, is 2 to 3 million years old. So that means that the primal brain does not understand language. So how do you communicate with the primal brain? And I had to dig deep into neuroscience, and now I can really explain in a very powerful way why people are stuck and how they can get unstuck. And Mike said in a Q&A that one of the most important things whenever you talk about what you have to offer is not so much the how, whether it's in an email or in social media, it's the what and the why.
Yeah.
Meaning, when people are stuck in misery and they're just lost and years go by, it's really incredibly powerful to be able to give them a proper diagnosis and say, hey, this is exactly the real cause of your issue because of A, B, C. And when people go like, wow, yes, now I get it. And that person is able to explain things better than I could explain it to myself. And once they have this big aha moment, then if you understand the solution better than anyone else, it makes sense that you also, sorry, if you understand the problem better than anyone else, it
Yeah.
also makes sense that you understand the solution better than anyone else. So to me, there was a huge unexpected benefit that it forced me to have that level of clarity. And now I'm in a so much better position to explain to people the real cause of their problem and how to solve it in a completely unique solution. That makes sense because I had to go through the mental effort through the book and it's going to pay off dividends. Does that make sense?
Totally. Oh, that's so good. I'm glad you circled back to that.
Okay. So to answer the question in terms of what do I say to other people who would want to scale their business, I would say, hey, if you are listening to this, most likely you are a coach or in the health industry. So I would say walk your talk. And by that, I mean, as a coach or an expert, the value of giving expert advice, right? This is what you're offering to your clients. So walk your talk. And I'm going to share another story with you. I told you I'm quite passionate about my topic, but it's going to make sense. So here's the story. In 1979, there was an Air New Zealand flight that went from New Zealand to go to have the passengers visit Antarctica. Apparently, there's very many scenic things to see in Antarctica. And one day, the flight was scheduled for the day after, but the control center changed the flight path by just a few degrees, just a few degrees. And for some technical reason, the pilots did not know about that. So what ended up happening is that what was just a few degrees at the beginning actually became, after 4 hours of flight, 26 miles of difference, right? Instead of ending up here in open airspace in safety, they ended up in this area, and it was quite cloudy. And when the time came, when the plane came down to kind of show the landscape to the passenger, it was cloudy, they couldn't see anything, and there was actually a volcanic mountain 13,000 feet high, and the plane just went and crashed into the mountain. 257 people died. Now, why am I sharing this story? Here it is. The value of coaching, and one of the things that I really got out of PPIP, is the ability to always be back on track. Let me repeat that. Always be back on track, because if you err by just a few degrees, you may end up somewhere completely different. And the huge value that I got was, okay, could I have written a good book by myself? Well, I believe I'm a great communicator. I have good ideas. I know how to express things. Yes. But what PPIP did in terms of not only forcing me to dig deep, but it was also following a structure that has the people following a very specific psychological journey so they can relate to what you have to say and live that experience so they understand that you're the real deal. But if I didn't have the weekly coaching and Q&A questions and feedback from Meredith in terms of how to write my book, because I would write a chapter 2, submit it, she would give me feedback, I would have just gone maybe a few degrees here and just ended up, crashing against the mountain. Yeah. So the story is really to illustrate the dangers of doing things by yourself, because you may think that you're saving money and time short term, but the reality is that you're not. You're ending up wasting more time, more money, more effort, low morale, because I can see that I could have taken maybe Mike's book, which is excellent, and he gives you the steps on how to write the book. But then, hey, it's not perfect. It's not perfect. You don't have all the steps. And if you don't have that feedback loop, you just go on a tangent. And I'm mentioning this because I actually have an acquaintance. It's the person who referred me to Mike when the time came. And PPIP offers so much great material that there was a call recently done by Tina Constant, the other fantastic coach in PPIP in terms of how to write a book. And she really explained the different steps and how the OBMN book must be written. And he was so thrilled after having listened to that talk that he sent me the outline of the book. And I looked at it and immediately I could see, like, yes, the first kind of, few chapters were on track. And then he was like, going just like completely off track. And I said, hey, I really recommend that you think seriously about getting expert help, because you may think you're on the right track, but you're just going to go crash against the mountain. So if your coach, an expert, walk your talk, this is the best possible group you'll find to help you scale. You'll be able to stay on track to achieve results much faster. Will it take time and effort? Of course, but at least you'll know that it will take the least amount of time, the least amount of effort for you to achieve the result. And there's one more thing that I want to say, because I really mean it, is I've been doing online marketing since 2006. That's a long time. That's like dinosaur time back in the day, even before Mike Shreve. And I've seen a lot of internet marketing gurus come and go. But I said at the beginning, somehow Mike is special. And the team of people that he has assembled is special. Not only does he say things in a way that click with me, but his sense of ethics, his sense of really wanting to help, it's just mind-blowing. I mean, just since I joined PPIP, he has added 4 super powerful modules in the program that I didn't know before joining that are incredibly helpful. And why did he do it? Because he really wants to help you. And he has this saying that he got from Jim Rohn: if you want people to believe that you can help them, help them. But he does that not only through the through the OBMN book, but also once you are part of PPIP, he keeps delivering and over delivering. And just being part of this community of this wonderful people. I mean, I don't know how he did it, but he has curated an amazing group of people, whether it was Meredith, Tina, you, Jessica, Suzanne, Mildred, Alex, and forgive me if I've forgotten your name, but I was having this conversation with Meredith, and we're saying, oh, Suzanne is so wonderful. And I said, hold on a second. everybody in PPIP is wonderful.
It's
You
true.
guys really care. It's not about punching the clock. And I've seen and I have experienced like people coming and punching the clock, like, oh, yeah, I'm your coach. And, what can I do for you? You guys really care. So, sorry, I got carried over, but that's been my experience. So I wanted to share it.
Oh no, thank you. You can get carried away on that all day. I think it's fantastic. We truly do have the best team here at Peaceful Profits. It's fantastic. And so I love that advice that you've given. I think it really hit home with me actually with the decision I'm making. So I can see how you are so good at what you do with helping people make decisions. This has been just such a good conversation. I love it. Where can people find more, learn more about your work, especially, women who are considering divorce? Where can they learn more about what you do?
Thank you. So there's a website called divorce decision decoded, all one word.com. So that's divorce decision decoded.com. So that's the website where they can go. So as I mentioned, the book is written. The book funnel will be ready in a couple of months. So you can go there if you're considering divorce and sign up so that you will be notified as soon as the book is ready for sale. Or if you want to have, some further information or maybe help further or faster, you can also find the contact information so we can get in touch and start a conversation. So it's divorce decision decoded, all one word.com.
Perfect. Okay, Mike Fink, thank you so much. This has been a fantastic conversation. Thanks everyone for listening, and we will see you next time.
Thanks for having me, Shana. It was a true pleasure being here.